let's switch over to international law.
Yeah,
So on the Ukraine front, you've come on here before. You've
yeah,
spoken about the progress ever since the war was, and it's just horrible, horrible situation where people were dying left and right. And then I felt like things kind of calmed down. The election kind of changed some things, but then Zelensky's at the White House, things kind of blew up, and Trump spoke with Putin, and then I thought this was beginning to kind of thaw things a little bit. And then we hear they were going to, I believe it was either Turkey or Saudi Arabia, and they were beginning to speak.
yeah,
But then all of a sudden, this past week, we had these missile attacks that were the largest since the war began from Russia onto Kiev. And so at this point, people are like scratching their heads. What's going on? What is Putin's thinking?
yeah.
What is Trump to do now based on some of the promises he's made on how he could try to end this war? So can you give us a little bit of a status update on where things are now? Did we get here?
Yeah.
And then we can move into your analysis.
Sure. Well, at this moment, I think tomorrow Zelensky's supposed to meet with Putin in Turkey, apparently.
Okay.
And I noticed a report this morning that said before the meeting, the parties were supposed to exchange their views on what should happen. So Zelensky was complaining that he's exchanged his view or put on in paper, presented his views, but Putin hasn't done that. And I'm not sure, like getting Putin to the peace negotiation table has been a bit of a challenge. He's a slippery fellow. So Zelensky shows up, but Putin doesn't show up. So there's some possibility that tomorrow they may actually meet. But here's the challenge. Let's say you're sitting at home. Someone walks into your house, says, I want this bedroom, this kitchen, and this is no longer yours, it's mine. You say, well, wait a minute, this is mine. No, it's now mine. That's the kind of scenario you've got here with parts of Ukraine under Russian rule because they marched in and took it. And then, so they say, well, let's talk peace. Okay, peace. But what about this land? We'll say, well, we won't decide about the land. We'll have peace for everything else, but not for this land. This land is now our land. Okay, that's an untenable position. It's not about land, really. It's about people on the land being tortured, attacked, killed, raped, children being kidnapped and taken away, never to see their families again, and so on. That's what's in the Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine. That's a big problem or concern. But the evolving situation is that the U.S. has been withdrawing from this peace process and leaving the war up to Ukraine and Europe and Canada to deal with. And there are, efforts being made to advance the defense capability of Ukraine among those countries. But it's a fact of life that without American arms and military, supplies, it's not easy for Ukraine to defend itself. And so there are some key factors that have been sort of red light, green light kind of factors. One is, will America at least sell Ukraine the arms and military needs, the things that Ukraine needs to continue the war, if not donate or grant or whatever, supply, at least sell. And there have been moments where Trump has said, no, we're not even selling. We're not going to give, supply, anything. And the other is the satellite coverage, the geographic coverage and the military intelligence that satellites are providing, especially Musk's, satellite capabilities, have been lent also to the Russians. So now the Russians have been using Musk satellites to, to conduct the war, and they're trying to stabilize that. So, like a clarification that could be helpful for Ukraine would be, if America is not going to be involved, will it sell the arms, and will it provide at least the intelligence needed to defend the country? And then there are discussions going on about providing a ceiling for Ukraine by European powers, where they block off the capacity of Russia to send missiles in, and the drones and all that, so that Ukraine is safe from the attacks at least. Um, but the war looks like it's a long-term thing. It's not going to be settled tomorrow.
Mm.
And the reason is because Putin wants to occupy all of Ukraine. There's no trade-offs. He's not interested in settling temporarily for what he's got, and giving Ukraine a chance to live with the rest of the country and so on. He wants to occupy Ukraine, and he also wants to, I believe, and he's declared that he wants to um, restore the former Soviet empire to the glory it had, which means the Baltic states, Moldova, Poland, and other Eastern European countries are all in jeopardy. But I would just add this one other thing. Why should America care about all this? Who gives a damn? It's on the other side of the world. Okay, there are people dying, but I mean, really, it's the answer is America, and I think we've talked about this before. Ukraine surrendered its nuclear arsenal to Russia in exchange for American and UK and Russian, in particular, guarantees of its sovereignty, which has been violated. So, and the talk is going down this line. Oh, let's have another peace, agreement. Let's, settle all this by way of a peace agreement and set up some kind of protections for Ukraine. But the problem is not protections and another peace agreement. The problem is enforcing already what has been in play and established many years ago, from the UN Charter to the Helsinki Accords to the Budapest Memorandum about the nuclear weapons. All those have said, okay, Ukraine's sovereign. So if it's sovereign, make it sovereign. And that's why we're going to be continuing in the war, unfortunately.
Well, some thoughts, and I guess devil's advocate as well. As they say, all wars end in some kind of negotiated settlement, right? Ultimately, after enough killing, both sides lay down their arms. With Poland and some of these other countries you listed already being in NATO, which would invoke in Article 5, or I
Yeah,
believe, right?
yeah.
Uh, isn't it likely that Russia is eventually going to, settle this thing on some terms, especially given the fact that the U.S. and Ukraine recently just signed off some kind of mineral deal, from what I had, heard in the news.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, isn't Putin just doing this, like these recent attacks, just to somehow get some extra leverage at the negotiation table, to show the other side how much pain they're going to suffer if they don't give him what he wants, which is the land and, as you say, the people who are within
Yeah.
that space? I guess I'm trying to be a little bit hopeful about it, but give me your take.
You're right about the comments. Okay, first of all, not all wars end in negotiations, other than, for example, General MacArthur,
Yeah, complete surrender.
complete surrender.
Yeah,
So there is that. Is there going to be a complete surrender in this war? I don't think so. It doesn't look that way.
yeah, I don't think so.
So you're right that there may be some sort of peace negotiation that's needed somewhere down the line.
Hmm.
But it's the challenge is that to come up with this formula that works, and there
Yeah,
is no formula that works. Uh, the formula that works is Putin is going to have to be removed from power. Uh, Now, his view of it is Zelensky has to be removed from power. So, it's a two-way
Yeah.
street. But I think from the point of view of Americans and Canadians and others, um, there's no, I'd love to provide you with a great scenario about how to settle things. But I think the main way to settle things is cut his oil.
Hmm.
The way he's funding this enterprise is oil, illegal oil shipments to India, to China, and other places. And basically, he has made, I think, something like 3 times as much in the way of oil revenues than all the money that all the Western nations have supplied Ukraine to defend itself in the course of these last 3 years. So his oil revenues are funding the war. And, you can fight a war, or you can, use sanctions to try and limit how far he can get. And hopefully that would uh, lead to a state where he'll say, okay, wait a minute, there's a problem. But you have to understand, uh, this is a long discussion. The short
Yeah.
version is this: there's no morality in Russia. Morality is finished. You can't be a moral person in Russia. It's very difficult. Very few moral people in Russia. So there's no, is this fair? Can we sort this out? It's all self-interest all the way up to the top. There's a brothel in the top in Russia, a brothel of people who are power and money hungry, and they support Putin, and that's why there's a war. And Putin has, the way he's climbed to power, he's the most powerful man in the world in terms of money. He's richer than Musk and all the other guys, because maybe it's not all in his name, but he controls a vast, like trillions of dollars. And a lot of it has been plundered or stolen. Now
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
say,
So
oh,
I think
this
somebody
guy's,
once,
you know,
I think somebody once called it a kleptocracy,
that's it.
right?
Now you can say, well, this guy, I'm slanted, biased, and, full of terrible, poisoned opinions. But, look, I'm not fighting in the war. He's not attacking me personally. I'm looking at it from a Western point of view,
Yeah.
but I do follow what's going on. And that's the best I can make out on Ukraine.